Hello and welcome to my channel Happy Hours. In the last video I discussed about the center and state relations. In this video I am going to discuss about the different committees for the center state relationships and about the union territories. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump into the first topic for today, and that is the committee or the commissions with respect to the center state relations. The very first committee was the Setalwat Committee, and it was appointed by the first ARC Administrative Reform Commission in the year 1966-69 to give suggestions on the autonomy of the states. The committee recommended autonomy of the states within the limits of the constitution. The second one is Raja Munnar Committee. It was appointed by the Tamil Nadu government in the 1969 to give the recommendations on the autonomy of the state. Major recommendations were abolition of the residuary power, or this power should be vested in the state. The second one, the interstate council to be established as soon as possible, and all the matters related to the interest of the state to be discussed in the interstate council. And the third one is the abolition of all India service. Next one is Sarkaria Commission. It was appointed by the central government and the timeline is 1983 to 88. It was the first center state relations commission and was headed by Justice Ranjit Singh Sarkaria. The year 1983 to 88 was a period of turmoil in the Indian history because of the demand of Khalistan which was going on. There was Operation Blue Star, and the Operation Blue Star was a military operation conducted against the terrorists or the Khalistani. They created bunkers in the Golden Temple, we all know. It led to the assassination of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, which was followed by anti-Sikh riots. The problem started in Jammu and Kashmir and Assam. The center should remain strong because the divisible powers were in the country. The central government must not misuse its power, then only the center state relations will be normal. Some of the recommendations of this committee was as on first recommendation was on the governor. The eminent person to be appointed as the governor. A politically active person not to be preferred to be appointed as a governor of the state. Secondly, a person who has ever been active in state politics not to be preferred to be appointed as the governor in that particular state. As far as possible, the governor should be allowed to complete his or her 5 years term. Last one is, as far as possible, the CM of the state should be consulted in the appointment of the governor. Next, on the article number 356. President's rule or state emergency to be proclaimed only in extreme cases, that is, when all the available alternatives fail to prevent or rectify a breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state. Secondly, a warning should be given to the concerned state with 1 week time to reply to the warning. Thirdly, the President's proclamation should be contain the warning given to the state, the reply given by the state. On the financial relations, there were two recommendations. First was the Constitution to be amended to make provisions for the mandatory sharing of major taxes between the center and the state. And secondly, the states are allowed to borrow from the other states. The second recommendation is being implemented in India. And some major other recommendations are as follow. The first one is the name of interstate council to be changed to intergovernmental council, and it should be established as soon as possible. Secondly, the central forces to be deployed in the state in consultation with the state government. Next one is Ponchi Commission. The timeline was 2007 to 2010, known as the Second Center State Relations Commissions. It was headed by Madan Mohan Punji. He was a retired judge of Supreme Court. The major recommendations were: the first one was an eminent person to be appointed as the governor of the state. The governor to be removed by the process of impeachment in the state legislative assembly. Thirdly, the center should consult the state before making a law on a subject in the concurrent list. Fourth, the president should give his views on the state bill reserved for his consideration within a limit of 6 months. Fifth, while allocating resources to the state, the development of state to be taken into consideration. And the last one was the emphasis on the good governance in the lesser developed state. Now let us understand what is the concept of cooperative federalism. Why we need a cooperative federalism? Federalism is not an end. It is a means to an end, and the end is development and welfareism. This end of welfareism cannot be achieved if there is conflict between the center and the state, or between the states within themselves. The problems like threat to internal security like terrorism, Naxalism, organized crimes like human trafficking, smuggling, trafficking, etc., require the cooperation not only between the center and the state, but also between the states, because these problems affect the states also. The Punchi Commission also held that cooperative federalism is required for socio-economic development of the country, and also to maintain the unity and the integrity of the India. And how it is achieved? It can be achieved through two things. And first is through the constitutional mechanism, and secondly through the extra constitutional mechanism. Now let us discuss each one of them one by one. The very first is constitutional mechanism. It has been provided under the article number 263, that is the interstate council. Secondly, adjudication mechanism, article number 262, interstate river water dispute. Thirdly, full faith and credit clause under article number 261. Article number 261 holds that a judgment given by a court is in a civil case is binding throughout the territory of India. Fourthly, delegation of powers. Under article number 258 and 258A, the union can confer its power on the state in certain cases, and governor of the state may, with the consent of the government of India, delegate or entrust its executive power to the union. Fifth one is the GST Council under the article number 279A mentioned. It was added by the 101st Amendment Act 216. It is a constitutional body. Its composition is: first is it is headed by the Union Finance Minister. Secondly, the Union Minister of the state in charge of the finance. Thirdly, the ministers of taxation or finance of each state, or any minister nominated by the state. The GST Council makes a recommendation to the union and the state on important issues related to GST, like the goods and services that may be subjected or may be exempted from GST, model GST laws, GST rates, special provisions for certain states, etc. Now the next one is extra constitutional mechanism. Niti Aayog is the extra constitutional mechanism because it is not mentioned in the constitution. The full form of Niti Aayog is National Institution for Transforming India in the successor of Planning Commission. The Niti Aayog was formed by resolution of Union Cabinet on the 1st January 2015. It is an extra constitutional or non-statutory body. The Niti Aayog is the premier policy think tank of the government of India, which provides both directional and policy inputs. It designs strategic and long-term policies and performs programs for the government of India, and it also provides technical advice to the center and the state. The Niti Aayog has been constituted to achieve the important goal of the cooperative federalism. The Niti Aayog within in its structure consists of a governing council with the PM as its chairman and the comprising of CMs of all the states. Thus, the Niti Aayog acts as the platform of the Government of India to bring the states together. The Niti Aayog has also taken number of steps to foster cooperative federalism, which includes meetings between the PM or the cabinet minister and all the CMs, subgroups of chief ministers on the subject of national importance, launching of aspirational district program for the development of backward district. Next is the Zonal Council. States Reorganization Act in 1956 created a 5 zonal councils which are north, south, east, west and central. It is a statutory body because it was created by the Act of Parliament in the year 1971. In the year 1971, the Northeast Zonal Council was also created. So total we have 6 zonal councils. The objective of zonal council is to settle the local dispute, that is the dispute among the member state, and also to evolve common strategy to solve the common problem. Now let us understand the composition. It is headed by the Union Home Minister, CMs of member state and lieutenant governor of the member union territories and chief secretaries of the member state. Some examples are UGC and NTA. Now, as a concluding remark, I want to say federalism in India started with the centralization development model under the Congress system or the predominant party system, where the Congress was the ruling party at the center, and in most of the states with the growth of regional political parties in 1980s, the nature of Indian federalism witnessed a change. The regional political parties became not only dominant in the state politics, but they had a say in the national politics also, and the government at the center were dependent on the support of regional parties. This phase saw the emergence of the bargaining federal model, where the state started bargaining with the center. It was during this phase that need for cooperative federalism was felt. Gradually, in the contemporary time, in the era of liberalization, the emphasis is on the competitive cooperative federalism. The center and the state should cooperate with each other in tackling the problem like poverty, hunger, disease, environmental pollution, unemployment, etc. The state should implement welfare policies of central government. The center should also help the states in tackling threats to internal security like terrorism and Naxalism by sharing intelligence inputs with the states and equipping the states to tackle such problems. On the other hand, states should compete with each other to get more and more investment by creating a conducive environment or ease of doing business. Now let us discuss about the union territories. The union territories are under the direct administrative control of the union government, and they do not enjoy any constitutional relationship with the center. That is, they did not take part in the distribution of powers with the center. There is another question for us, and that is why India is having so many union territories. First is Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep because of the strategic reason, that is for the defense of Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. Secondly, the Delhi because it is the national capital. Thirdly, Chandigarh because of the political reasons since both Punjab and Haryana demanded it. Fourthly, the Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli because of cultural reasons, that is because of the presence of different cultural footings. Puducherry because of the legal reason, that is India has signed a treaty with France that so long As people of Puducherry wish to maintain their separate status, their wishes have to be respected. And the last one is the Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh because of the administrative and strategic reason. Now let us understand the administrative structure of the Union Territories. The Union Territories are administered by the President through an administrator to be appointed by him, with such designation as he may specify. The President may appoint the governor of a state as the administrator of an adjoining Union Territory where a governor is so appointed. He exercises his function as such administrators independently on the State Council of Ministers. The Governor of the Punjab, the ex-office administrator of the Chandigarh. Now let us understand the legislative structure. Delhi and Puducherry are the union territories having the legislative assemblies. For the other union territories, the parliament acts as the legislature. The Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act has provided for legislative assembly for Jammu and Kashmir. Now let us understand about the judicial structure. Delhi and Jammu and Kashmir are the union territories having their own high courts. Now in the last, let us discuss about some of the important facts about Delhi. Delhi was a state under the original constitution. The 69th Amendment Act 1991 provided for a legislative assembly for Delhi with 70 members. Chief Minister of Delhi and the other ministers are appointed by the President. The size of the Council of Ministers, including the Chief Minister, is 10% of the total strength of the Legislative Assembly. All the subjects in the state list and the concurrent list, except law and order, services and land, have been delegated to the government of NCT, where the full form of NCT is National Capital Territory of Delhi. Delhi is governed by the Government of National Capital Territory Act 1991, which has been amended from time to time. By this, I am concluding my video. Thank you.